Hi everyone, today we're going to learn about a type of artwork called Huichol yarn paintings. Huichol yarn paintings are created by a group of Native Americans from Mexico called the Huichol Indians. And this tribe is very well known for creating yarn paintings. So let's find out a little bit about yarn paintings, and then I'm going to show you how you can create a yarn painting at home. All right, so here is an example of a lovely Huichol yarn painting. The Huichol Indians use a wooden board as their surface to work on. They use a natural type of glue made from beeswax, and they use yarn that they have dyed to create their images. There's actually no paint involved in making a yarn painting. So as you can see in this example, there is a beautiful, bright, vibrant picture of a bird. Lots of the Huichol yarn paintings are going to show the tribe's myths, different stories from their tribe, and it's going to show their daily activities. Another thing that the Huichol yarn paintings are going to show a lot of are elements from nature. So you're going to see lots of animals and plants in Huichol yarn paintings. And if you look at this one, you can see a border of yarn has been made going all the way around the edge of the picture. So a lot of yarn paintings include a border. Now, before I show you how to create a yarn painting at home, let's go over some of the materials that you will need. You're going to need a sturdier surface. You know, the Huichol used the wooden board, but you can use something like a piece of cardboard. I have something called I call it cardboard paper. It's a little bit thinner than cardboard, which is what I'm going to use. Maybe even a piece of cardstock would be a little bit sturdier than normal paper. But since we're going to be gluing yarn down onto our work surface, it needs to be a little bit sturdier. So you're going to need a board like cardboard. You're also going to need some glue. The liquid glue is best. It can't really be a glue stick, so it needs to be a type of liquid glue. I like to put my liquid glue in some sort of pan and use a glue brush when I use the liquid glue, but you can use it straight from the bottle as well. You're also going to need a pair of scissors. You're going to need some yarn scraps that you might have. The Huichol Indians also do beadwork sometimes, so if you don't have access to yarn scraps, you can maybe do a picture using beads instead of yarn. And then you're also going to need a pencil to draw your image with first. So those are the materials that you need to have to create your yarn painting. Now let me show you how to go about creating your own yarn painting at home. Okay, so let's get started with our Huichol yarn painting. You can see that I have my picture drawn out with pencil. You can use another material to draw with, like Sharpies or a pen, but I would suggest that you do not use a washable marker to draw with. The reason is we're going to be putting wet glue on our drawing in a minute, and when you put something wet on a washable marker, it's going to make the marker color bleed, and it will end up getting all over the yarn. So I suggest that you do not use a washable marker, but about anything else would be perfectly fine. All right, so I have it drawn out. I have a little piggy I chose to do. You can make the picture out of anything that you would like. I also added a border on mine, like the Huichol Indians, and I decided to do a double border because I think it makes it look just a little bit fancier. All right, so the first thing you're going to do when you're ready to start using the yarn is to measure the yarn to make sure you have the right length. And it doesn't have to be a precise measurement. All I do is place the yarn on top of the line where it's going to go and just hold my fingers where I need to cut. And you're just going to carefully cut the yarn so that it's the right size. And I always save my scraps because I might need it for a smaller part. Then, if you're using the glue straight out of the bottle, all you're going to do is carefully squirt a line of glue right on top of the line that you drew. Be very careful when you use the glue straight out of the bottle. You don't want to have a huge puddle of glue on your work surface, so be very careful. And then I'm just going to gently place my yarn right on top of that glue line and pat, pat, pat it down so that it is in the glue and it's going to stick very nicely. Once you have your yarn down on the glue and it's where it needs to be, don't knock into it and don't remove it from your board because you want it to be able to dry securely. It will take it a little bit of time to dry, so once it's down, leave it alone. And then you're going to move on and do the next part that needs yarn on it. So you would take your yarn and you're going to measure it first so that you get the right cut. And then you're going to apply the glue. Let me show you what you do if you're going to use a glue brush and glue that's in a pan. So I'm going to dip my glue brush into the glue, and then I'm going to bounce the glue brush down the line. The reason why I'm bouncing it instead of swishing it on or mopping it on like a normal paintbrush is because I really need for there to be a good bit of glue on the line. There needs to be enough that the yarn is going to not fall off of your surface. So an easy way to tell if you have enough glue on there is if you can see the white of the glue. If you can't see the white of the glue, then you probably do not have enough. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to place my yarn on the glue line and then just pat it down. And then I would keep going until I have a nice purple border, and then I might do a different color for the next border. But let me show you something that might be a tiny bit harder, and that's doing lines that are not perfectly straight like the border. These lines are going to be a little bit trickier. But the thing that we do is the same as the border. We still are going to measure our yarn first. It just takes a little bit more patience holding it down to see what size the yarn needs to be. Then I'm going to cut it down to size. And then I'll take my glue brush and I'm going to bounce down the line. So make sure that the brush bounces if you're using a glue brush so that you get nice areas of glue where you can see the white of the glue. And notice that I keep dipping into the glue when I think I'm running low. Then I'm going to take my yarn just like I did on the border, place it on the glue line, and then pat, pat, pat it down. Sometimes you might measure a little bit off and you might have a gap, like I have a gap left right there. If it's a tiny one, you can sometimes just move the yarn and adjust it until you have the two ends touching. But if it was a big gap, all you would have to do would be to get the same color of yarn and just cut the size of the gap in yarn and puzzle piece it together. So it's really easy to fix mistakes like that. If I had made the yarn too long, I would have just trimmed it once I got to the end of the circle. All right, so as of now, I would continue going. I would make the body, the legs, all the little details of my piggy picture. I would maybe even make some grass or some mud down here to finish off my beautiful yarn painting. When you finish your Huichol yarn painting, make sure you have a safe place for it to dry. It'll take about all day for it to dry completely, but when you're finished, you'll have a lovely yarn painting. Here's one of my finished examples with the kitty cat. You can see that I filled in some of the bigger parts, so you can actually color in with the yarn as you are finishing up your yarn painting. Let me also show you one that My nephew did. He's the same age as my pre-K friends, and this is his version of a cat yarn painting. So it doesn't matter how old you are, any of my art friends can create a beautiful yarn painting. I hope you have lots of fun, and I cannot wait to see some of your yarn paintings.